Good morning, everyone. Today we're going to be talking about the Crimson Realm because it literally changes everything that you know about PSE bursting. But before we jump into all of that, if you're new to the channel, I upload NGS content daily. So if you do play this game, I would really appreciate a subscribe as it really helps out the channel. Anyway, without further ado, let's begin the video. So the very first thing I want to talk about is a recap of what we know about PSE bursting. So the quote-unquote meta of PSE bursting before was you spread out, you kill random mobs, you fill up the bar until it's 4 bars, then you go to a trial, you kill the trial, and then you get a PSE burst. This has been the meta since Retem Al-Noth was being released like a year and a half ago. So this is what we fundamentally know as veteran players or players who care about efficiency. However, this is totally scrapped and thrown out of the window with Crimson Realm. The reason for this is because the Crimson Realm has now special trials that actually give you special buffs. As you can see over here on the top left corner, we have this buff at the very top, we've got an F, and then we've got an E. So what do all of these little symbols stand for? So the very first symbol over here, this little plus symbol, simply means, oh, it's easier to fill up the bar and it's easier to proc a PSE burst. This is a normal thing. This has been around since they did the rehaul of the whole PSE system, and so this is nothing new. However, the F and the E are new. The F is a guaranteed forte, which means whenever we get a PSE burst, it will be a forte and it's guaranteed and it will consume one of these stacks. Now do keep in mind that there's a number 1 next to both of these buffs. These can stack indefinitely. However, the most that I've seen them stack up to is 2 of each stack. So basically what happens is you can guarantee that the next 2 PSE bursts that you get are going to be forte. And if you do get an encore, it does not consume the forte stack. So let's say that you have 2 stacks of forte and you have 2 stacks of encore over here. So that means when you get your first PSE burst, it's going to be a guaranteed forte. It'll consume 1 of the F stacks. And then right after the forte, you're guaranteed an encore, and it's going to consume 1 of the E stacks. However, after that encore, you are still going to have 1 stack of your F for the forte, as well as 1 stack of the E for the encore. So this means that for your next PSE burst, you're going to be able to guarantee a forte as well as an encore forte right after that again. So it's in your best interest to stay in the room, especially if you have multiple stacks of fortes as well as encores, because you can still take advantage of them. Now keep in mind, if you have multiple stacks of the encore, it does not encore forever. You only get 1 encore, and then it's going to reset the PSE meter. You need to fill it back up in order to get another PSE burst into an encore. So just because you see that you have 2 stacks of the E does not mean that you can go to a PSE burst into an encore, encore. It just doesn't work like that. Unfortunately, I wish it did, but unfortunately it doesn't. However, now we need to talk about how on earth do we actually get these F and E stacks. In order to get them, they are through trials. There are going to be time trials where you need to kill certain bosses within 3 minutes. And so there's a bunch of different special bosses, special trials that pop up, and you just got to kill them really quickly. Now do keep in mind there is a penalty for dying here. Luckily, this is just a combat zone, so it shouldn't be too difficult. Even if you do build a little bit more glass cannon, the bosses shouldn't be able to one-shot you in most cases. There is one new boss that is a little bit more troublesome. However, we'll cover that later in the video. So as you can see over here, there is a trial where we need to defeat this Rasetsu within 2 minutes. And if we read the yellow text over here, it says, complete a side mission to trigger a burst change during the next PSE burst. So what that means is after we clear this trial, if we do not die, because there is a clear condition over here, clear without being incapacitated, 0 out of 1, we will be guaranteed either a forte or an encore for our next PSE burst. And as you can see, after we get the trial clear, on the top left corner, we do get a little F, which means that we are guaranteed a forte for our next PSE burst. Now if we fast forward a little bit, you can see we get another trial over here where we need to defeat the Max Vang over here. And again, we have 2 minutes to kill this boss. And if we do complete this successfully, we will trigger a burst change during the next PSE burst. So again, it's guaranteed to either give a forte or an encore. So as we can see, after trial clear, Max Vang suppression, we get a little E. So that means that the next PSE burst we get is going to be a guaranteed forte. And right after that forte, we're going to get a guaranteed encore. And the way that fortes work is if the first burst is a forte, it's guaranteed that the second burst will also be a forte. So that is really, really nice. And basically the new meta is to follow the T's and follow the E's and just move as a group. The reason for this is simply because these trials are very, very demanding. You have to kill the boss within 2 minutes. If everyone is spread out, you might not be able to kill the boss within the time limit. Now, some of you may have noticed that at the very beginning of the video, I said some of these trials are 3 minutes. And that is because a very specific trial with the Dryverus over here, which is the new boss. So this boss is incredibly tanky. As you can see, the clear condition is completely different. We get a trial, we have to defeat the Dryverus, and then the reward upgrade is based on damage dealt, and there's 0 out of 4. So in order to get the maximum rewards 4 out of 4, you actually need to defeat the Dryverus within 3 minutes. It's very, very difficult to do this, or it's very demanding DPS wise to do this. However, there are several strategies that I can share with you. At the very beginning of the fight, immediately Photon Blast. The reason for this is because your Photon Blast has a 90-second cooldown, which is 1 minute and 30 seconds, which just so happens to be half of the time given to defeat this enemy. So once you start off the fight with the Photon Blast, especially if there's 8 of you, you can almost fill the first bar really, really quickly, like right in the very opening, simply because, you know, Photon Blasts deal a lot of damage, especially if you crit. Now, obviously, if possible, you do want to aim for the weak spot. As you can see right now in the B-roll, we always blight round the weak spot so that everyone knows where it is. It's basically the big purple pink glowy thing, all right? You want to focus on those orbs because after you break 2 of them, the boss will go into a down state and expose its weak spot, which is its core. And if you deal enough damage to the core, it will automatically go into another physical down. So because of that, you really want to focus on the 2 weak spots at the very beginning. And another thing that also helps a ton is elemental downs. This boss is weak to the dark element. If you have a lot of force users or technique users, I highly recommend using dark attacks in order to get the elemental down, because when this boss is moving around, it's an absolute nightmare to fight. If you do have the aggro, the best way to keep the boss in place is simply stand still so that the boss is not jumping and moving everywhere. It's incredibly important for whoever has aggro that they make the boss stand still by simply standing still themselves. And that way the boss is much easier to fight. If you're just kiting around the boss and just kind of like bringing it around and walking the dog, well, it's an absolute pain in the butt, and chances of you dealing enough damage to actually break it and kill it goes down significantly. So I do recommend that if you are the one with the aggro, you're gonna have to take one for the team, just stand still and face tank everything and just beat the living daylights out of it. However, you know, I know not all classes can do that. But as you can see over here, we do manage to defeat the Dryverus. However, we had 2 seconds remaining on the clock. And of course, everyone wants to know what are the rewards. Unfortunately, the rewards aren't that spectacular. If you manage to kill the boss, you get 15 of each of the new capsules. So that is the Spear, the Ward Row, as well as the Guard Row. So you get 15 of each of those capsules, you get 2 Foundia capsules, and then you get a rare item. So the rare item is usually a 9-star rarity weapon or above. I know a lot of people have gotten a bunch of 10-star rarity weapons like Rayar weapons as well as Flugelguard weapons from this. But for me personally, as you can see in the B-roll over here, I just got a measly Melik weapon. Now, I know for a fact at the very beginning, not everyone's going to be able to clear this boss. It's still worth your time to attack and do damage to the boss simply because it's based off how many bars you complete. So if you complete 1 bar, so this is the bare minimum, you just, you know, Photon Blast and you pretty much get the first bar, you get 3 of each of the capsules. If you manage to complete 2 bars, that means get the boss to 50% HP, you get 5 of each capsules. And if you complete 3 bars or if you get the boss down to 25% HP, you get 10 of each capsule. So it's not the end of the world if you don't have the damage. It's still worth doing simply because you are guaranteed a Foundia capsule, which is actually used to make your Lux Hal finales, so that is still worth it. Now, another thing I want to talk about is the Crimson Realm does rotate between different combat zone regions. So currently the Crimson Realm only exists in Kavaris at the current version of this game. However, in a future version, it will rotate in different combat zones, not only exclusive to Kavaris. So we'll also get the Crimson Realm in Alio, as well as Retem, as well as in Stia. However, this is obviously going to be in a future patch, so it will rotate between all of the different combat zones. But for now, it's just going to be rotating between Lost Central as well as Belugana runes. And the nice thing about the Crimson Realm is it is always active. You just simply teleport into here and boom, Crimson Realm is activated, and you can just go ahead and start killing enemies. So to recap, the Crimson Realm is totally different from our regular PSE combat zones. Basically, all the knowledge that you have for normal PSE combat zones, throw that out the window when you come into the Crimson Realm, simply because you want to follow the E's and the T's, and you want to stay grouped together so that when you do get those time trials to kill those bosses in under 2 minutes or kill the Dryverus in under 3 minutes, you're grouped up and you're ready to go. Because remember, if any single person triggers that trial, the countdown starts ticking down, and if you don't kill the boss, well, you don't get all of those guaranteed benefits of fortes, of encores, so forth and so on.
Special thanks to all the members for supporting the channel. It really means a lot to me. Thank you again.
But yeah, that's all I wanted to cover in today's video. Hopefully you guys found it helpful. If you did, I would appreciate a like and a subscribe, and I'll see you guys in tomorrow's video. Bye.